Sound check. Sound check. I think we did it. We checked the sound. Welcome everybody to episode 2 of the very second episode of I Just Got My Kid to Sleep podcast. Adjusting my things here. And now it's started. I don't know if I look the same as I did before. I didn't look to see if I'm framed up the same way. It feels like I'm a little different. But I don't know. If you're listening, then it doesn't even matter. I almost sang that like it was from Bohemian Rhapsody, the song. But I don't know the rules. I've heard that if you're presenting something on the internet or on TV where you videotape it and you sing someone else's words, someone else's lyrics, helicopter, just keeping the peace. Or maybe someone's flying to themselves. If you sing somebody else's words with that tune, it costs a lot of money. And like someday I might have that budget, but right now that would just shut me down at the very second episode. If I said, doesn't, I can't even do the sec. I think doesn't might have been too much. I shouldn't have said that it was Bohemian Rhapsody. Did you ever see that movie? Wayne's World? That's where I first had heard of that song. I still haven't seen that movie. I was a kid when people were watching that movie, young kid, and the part I saw about that movie that I liked was, maybe it was Wayne's World 2 even. Some people love that movie so much. The first one. I don't know about the second one. No one loves sequels that much compared to the first one. That's not a new observation. That's been out there. People claim that the sequel is just out there. See, this camera's got a lot of like window over here. This is a weird sponge. I put peppermint oil on sponges because I heard that keeps, insects away. Not that I have insects, but it's an apartment building. Anyway, people love Wayne's World and Wayne's World 2. And I'd say that this podcast episode, I'm going to try to like have a straight narrative, but I've already not, just by going into the fact that would say that. By talking about how I would say this thing that I'm not saying, which is it really important to say a thing that you're not saying? I think it's only important if you're like, I'm not saying this, but I'm saying this. Like, don't quote me. Which is weird. Because if there's ever a time to quote somebody, it's right after they say, don't quote me on this. I got to remember all the things because I want to go back and touch on them. Talk about them. In I took a journalism class growing up. First, second grade. What's the first grade Gazette? No. I was in high school, and my journalism teacher, Miss Bishop at the time, now Mrs. Overmeyer, I don't want to do libel here. I learned about libel. Before that class, I always thought liable was the word, but libel is when you say things. As a grown adult, you really shouldn't try to go into details of your high school education unless you're really sure about what was covered, because I don't remember. But libel, I think, is when you say something that's not true, and that's committing libel. Liable is when you're doing libel, then you're liable for it financially. Anyway, I'm really forgetting. Wayne's World 2. Is it better than Wayne's World? I gotta watch them now. But my favorite part of Wayne's World 1 that I haven't seen the movie, but It was on TV a lot, which I love movies on TV. Can we take a second and talk about that? Of course we can. Unless my neighbor doesn't want to talk about it. I don't think they can. No one's complained. Very second episode. To almost 1.1 episodes. Zero complaints on the sound. So, and I think people can hear it too. I was speaking into a microphone. And if you're watching it, you know that like a lot of the podcast microphones are like this. They're like this, and you can't touch it, and it's just there, and it's just like, my voice is so crisp and clear, and this is a calm, loving voice for the podcast. This is just the microphone that I bought, and I don't remember, but this is the first time I've really used it, is for this podcast. I have a lot of arm hair in this shot. That's weird to say if you're not seeing it. I gotta get focused. Wayne's World 2. So, movies on TV. My favorite thing as an adult right now, not my whole adult life, but in the last 5 or 10 years, is flipping through channels, finding a movie and watching it for a little bit. That's what I like. If you want to know what does Michael Palsack just do when he's chilling? That's what I like, because it doesn't really happen anymore. We got so many streamers, and I guess there's an option now with some of them where you can just like hit a thing and it'll just put out a random movie. But I still know that I could have picked it. I just there's so much pressure with the streaming to know, like when I was a kid, my dad, people would constantly say there's nothing on TV. They would say something like, we have 50 channels and there's nothing on TV. And I feel like TV took it personally. And they're like, all right, now there's no TV, but also you can watch anything on TV. You're not limited by cable stations. You can just type in what you want to watch on the internet, and it's somewhere, I'm sure. And if it's not, then you should try to buy it because it's worth something. When I was I need a cough one. When I was a kid, I always thought, like, my favorite movie growing up was the original Ninja Turtles movie. I got a little sad with Raphael. This isn't a movie podcast, but I've already talked about like 3. Maybe this is the movie episode. This is the one. That's how you start a Friends episode. The one about the podcast about the movie episode. So this is the one. No, I loved the Ninja Turtles movie. That was, I think, the first like real movie I saw in a theater. It was PG, and I remember we were in the mall in I think it was Fort Wayne, Indiana. I grew up near Fort Wayne, Indiana, and we had a movie theater in my town in Wabash, Indiana. Shout out, but I gotta be quiet because my kid's asleep. To Wabash, Indiana, they had a movie theater, and I saw Ninja Turtles 2 there, but I had to see Ninja Turtles right away. And Wabash didn't have it right away because at the time it wasn't like a first run for a lot of films. Now it is. I believe Eagles Theater, which is where I filmed my special. I'm so glad that wasn't a song that I had to pay for. So we were in the Fort Wayne Mall, the Glenbrook, I almost said Brookfield Mall, but that's a zoo near Chicago, Michael. Wow. What a great idea to do a podcast at the end of your day when you've just done the most tired thing you could possibly do. People talk about work. I used to get tired when I had like factory jobs, for sure. But when I was done, I was like, this is life, I'm doing it. And I feel that way as a parent too. I was going to say I'm more tired as a parent, but when I get my kid to sleep, I get this burst. This like, not today, because I don't know, we're all sick today. But normally, once he's down, I'm just like, let's go live. You haven't lived until you put your child to sleep and you turn a movie on TV and you watch the whole thing, even though you should be going to bed. I shouldn't whisper in case people got to turn up the volume now. I hope everybody heard that part. You haven't lived until your child is asleep and you watch a movie on TV and you watch the whole thing with commercials. Because it's not recorded. You just have to sit there and experience the freedom that you are exercising, that you're going to pay for tomorrow. When you're a kid, you try to stay out as late as you can. You try to, that's how you rebel. That's how you find yourself. As a parent, I turn on something I don't even need to watch, and I watch it because I earned it. Anyway, I think it's a good time to do a podcast. I gotta start getting to bed earlier though. We're in California, so this is the latest it could be in the United States, other than Hawaii. I get it. If there's some Hawaii people out there, it's not a bad time right now. It's you guys are going to bed too. It's late. Jack's been asleep for a little bit, but it took him a little while. He slept really late because he's recovering from his cough from last week. If you're a listener of the podcast, you might remember that last week he had a cough. Just catching people up in the first part of this podcast. That last week he had a little cough that I left the monitor on. You might have been able to hear it. That cough is he's recovering, but he's sleeping a lot, so he slept really late today. I don't wake him up. A lot of parents, I think, wake up their kids. That's what I've been told. You got to keep him on a schedule all the time. But I was like, he's gonna sleep until he wakes up. And he slept so late, which is great. But then he's up kind of late. And I got this podcast to do. And he doesn't even understand. I can't be like, dude, we got to do the podcast. Because then he's like, I'll do it with you. And I'm like, but that's the whole point. You're asleep. I love watching movies on TV that I didn't pick. Because when I turn them on a streamer, I just feel a pressure to be like, I picked this. And if it sucks, even a little bit, if it's not enthralling me, can we do a check on whether that's, no, we're not going to check that. Enthralled? I am enthralled, but can it enthrall me? Can someone be enthralled? Can you just look it up? There's nobody there. People who have been following the podcast know that it's just me. And my shark, we got to come up with a name for the shark. Shark, is that your name? Shark? I feel like it's a little, his teeth is closer to my head this time. And then this guy is my, not father of the year trophy, but super dad, because I do a podcast after he goes to sleep. And then this new addition to the studio is a baseball that was signed by the backup catcher for the Texas Rangers. Currently backup, who knows? Maybe he'll take Jonah Heim's job. He did a really good job of catching me. I threw out the first pitch. And the Rangers, Reds, spring training game. A lot of comedians at this point in their career have thrown out first pitches before. This was my first pitch. And he signed it for me. And I got to look up his name again. I think it's Andrew Kneisner. A very nice guy. He caught my pitch and he ran up to me like they do. And he was like, that was good. He said that was good. I'm not just saying that he said that. Look it up. It's on my Instagram. He said that was good. Did you play? And I froze because I do play in a league. I'm on the Smokies in the PCBL. I haven't played this year because I've been working. But I just had to play in high school and tried to play it off. But I never got to pitch. But it was the coolest thing ever. Like, I think a lot of there were 12,000 people there. And before I went out there to throw it, the lady that sort of scheduled it, because I was doing a show in the area to promote the show, she said that it was sold out and 12,000 people. And I was like, that's a lot. That's a lot of people. And she was like, yeah, but you do shows. Yeah, but not. I've never done a show for half. I don't think I've ever done a show for a quarter of that. For people who are doing math while they listen to this podcast, that's 3,000 people. I don't think I have. Cough button. I'm just going to say cough button instead of pressing. So if you haven't followed the podcast so far, there's a button when you do radio. This is so inside baseball. Where you can press the button if you're about to cough. Because if you're on like the radio all morning or whatever, you might be coughing because you just got up or whatever. I don't know. But there's no cough button. I don't know. I don't mind hearing people cough. but I don't know a lot about sound either. Today in my studio, I don't know if you can notice, but I did do some stuff to the sound. I heard if you put some stuff on the walls, so I hung some sweatshirts and coats on the wall of this room. So maybe it's absorbed. Is the word absorbed by the absorbing sweatshirts? Anyway, I threw out a first pitch and people applauded. People were watching, 12,000 people, and I was a little afraid and nervous. I remember walking out on the field, and I couldn't believe how beautiful it was close up. Even if you're not a fan of sports or baseball in general, if you were to like just look at a baseball field, the green is so green. Like they say that every blade of grass, every blade of grass, every blade of grass, every blade of grass, it's a different shade of green. And I don't believe that that's true anymore because this was all the perfect green. Um, Maybe I couldn't detect it, and it was like so. It was cut so perfectly, and then I touched the dirt. I remember I told my mom that that's what I did. Right when I stepped out on the field was I touched it, and she was like, "Were you allowed to do that?" I'm stepping on it already. I think my hands are okay. I touched the dirt, and she's like, "There's 12,000 people." Not my mom, the lady, and I was like, "That seems like a lot for a practice game." Spring training, and the lady was like, "But you do shows." I'm like, "Yeah, but when I do a show, it's for like less than a quarter, way less. If it's just me right now, yeah, I'm not gonna come up here and be like I'm doing thousands of people. If you've been to a show of mine and it's not a Saturday, then you know what the numbers are like, and it's intimate, and there's a connection. Um, if I mess something up, there's a relationship. But with 12,000 people there, you get one pitch, you're not even warmed up yet, and no one's gonna be like, "Oh, that's funny," because he's a comedian. If I spike it 6 feet in front of me or whatever, and but I didn't do that. I can still remember the way the ball felt when it left my fingertips. Because sometimes when you throw a baseball, it can be stuck in your hand too far, and because you're afraid of what life has to offer. I don't think that you're afraid of everything life has to offer, but whenever I've thrown the ball like that, it's because I'm like I don't want to mess this up. And so, but sometimes you can have it probably too far out. I don't know, and then you can't control it. And this was like I found it and it snapped off and it went into the strike zone. Anyway, that was special. So that's what happened. That's what's going on with that baseball. That's the new addition to the studio. But I love watching movies that I didn't schedule to watch or pick because let's take. I don't want to talk about a huge chain of movies or anything, but I do feel like there's some movies that I haven't watched that I should watch that are like sequels or part of like a big series, and I just feel like if it doesn't enthrall me, is it enthralling? Can someone enthrall me? Can I be the direct object? I need to have just my old English teachers. Not that they're old now, but previous English teachers. Mrs. Wyan, my 7th grade English teacher, taught us how to diagram a sentence. And that's the only time I ever did that in my life. But I remember doing it then. And I remember her argument being that someone told her that it might be something they do at parties, and then she laughed at that. But now as an adult, pretty much everything I'm saying now is as an adult. Cough. But so if I say now as an adult, I don't think I need to say that anymore. I think I'll just be like, whatever I'm saying. Man, this is gonna be a big shift for the podcast. If I cut out the words now as an adult, man, this could change everything. Just streamline it, just get to where I'm going. Anyway, I don't think when you're a kid, everyone's like, when am I going to use this? And the teacher at that point felt the need to tell us, like, I forget what she said exactly. I think learning other languages, it helps if you learn how to diagram sentences. I just saw the baseball again in the video. This is so, anyway, I'm going to stop talking about that. But I don't think that if you're learning something in school, especially under the age of like, I don't know, high school, I don't think it matters if you're ever going to use it. I think if you're sitting in a room with a group of people putting stuff in your brain, then that's the cool thing. Because no one tells you, but a lot of the stuff that you learn 0 through 5th, there's no 0 grade, kindergarten. I think that's why they call it kindergarten. Because you can't call it 0 grade. You just can't. What grade are you in? 0? Well, why are you here? Good point. I'm going to go home. Like, I'm a 0 grader. You just can't do it. That's why it's called kindergarten. That, in my mind, in the world of the I Just Got My Kid to Sleep podcast, they call kindergarten because otherwise they'd have to call it 0 grade. And that doesn't sound like something that's offering anything to a child. Anyway, I think a lot of the stuff that you learn in elementary school and middle school isn't stuff that you're necessarily going to use or remember as an adult. As the person I am right now. It sounded better the first way. But I don't think that's the point. I think the point is that you might use some of it in high school, in college, and that might help you get a job. Or it might help you grow as a person. And a lot of the stuff we do in life isn't something we do forever. That would be crazy. If in 0 grade, kindergarten, your teacher like, here is how you I don't know, spell the word cat. And you're like, all right. And they're like, that's what you're going to do. You're going to spell cat. And then in 1st grade, you spelled other words like cat, like catcher or cats. And then 3rd grade, it kept getting bigger, more, but that was just the one thing. And they were just like, well, we didn't want you to have to learn something that you weren't going to use. And then when you graduate high school and then college, you're like, what are you going to do? I'm going to make sure that people don't mess up cat. That's what I'm going to do. This is what I've been training for my whole life. I think it's good to know whatever. When I was, not know whatever, but like when I was in high school, not as an adult, not that there's anything wrong with that. I think it's good to go to school whenever. I'm not pausing because I feel awkward. I'm just trying to think. When I was a senior in high school, I took Spanish 4, and there's only like 4 of us. So we had an independent study. We would go to the Spanish 3 classroom because the Spanish 2 classroom, and while the Spanish 3 classroom was learning Spanish, we were being Spanish 4 students not learning Spanish. And our Spanish 4 teacher knew that we were learning Spanish. I think she put us over there because we were distracting the Spanish 3 kids from learning Spanish because we were an independent study. And at one point, she was never angry. She was so nice. She was just like, I would always take the chance to learn something when there's an opportunity. That's what she told us. And I think it's funny that I learned that more than any Spanish that year. And she was 100% right. Because if we had all decided as a group of 4 of us that we were going to learn Spanish and grow as Spanish speakers, I mean, how valuable of a skill is that? To be able to speak a whole nother language instead of just like not doing that for an hour every day or 45 minutes. Like, she was totally right. We could have changed our lives, but I think there was an attitude as a senior in high school, kind of in school in general, that especially, I mean, I went to a public school because that's all I had, but there's this idea that like learning isn't super cool. And when you're a specific age growing up, I think it's very normal to care what people care about. Like if you don't care and you're just yourself, then you've learned all you need. Good for you. But I think a lot of people do, and I don't think that's going to ever change. So there you go. So if somehow you can establish a environment where it's healthy to learn stuff, that would have helped us. But we had a healthy sense of not learning stuff in Spanish Cuatro. I know some Spanish. So going back to movies, I just think when you type in a movie into a streaming service and you go to watch it, and it's not like it's not one you've been waiting for. It's not in your queue necessarily if you have one. It's not, I think I got Jack's cough. It's not it's not something that like has been on your mind. It just feels like something you should watch. You're like, well, I watched Rocky. Let's see what Creed's like. Like it feel and Creed's probably I heard Creed is great, but like oh I watched Star Wars. I should watch all the ones in between. Like there's this feeling like you should watch it, and I have trouble enjoying movies that I feel like I should watch. When I was a child, I loved sequels because I had the time, I guess. Sequel, like whenever we left a movie as a kid, like I remember watching Ninja Turtles. We were like, wait, I think that could be a sequel. I think they left it open for a sequel. Which let's get into that road. This is a movie podcast, but if you watch the original Ninja Turtles, I'm pretty sure they show like Shredder getting crushed, but then somehow he's back in the second one. What? It's got to be so hard to write a movie where like the bad guy is the main character, one of the main characters, and like how do we make this a movie? Like I think when you write a movie, it can be good to like know what the end is, and like how do you write a movie where like one of the main characters has to lose but they don't die and people don't be like they just didn't kill him because they got to make more movies? How do you do that? How much of the screenwriting process is devoted to how do we resolve this Joker situation without removing Joker from everything? And I think it has to be a challenge because movies are very special when they feel like they can't happen again and they feel like the world has changed. But that can also close it off for a sequel, maybe. But sometimes you can kill somebody. Like I remember watching Stranger Things, and I haven't watched the new season yet, but I heard that the sheriff's back, and I thought he was. Well, they showed that at the end of the season. That's a bad example. I don't like streaming stuff because there's too much pressure to enjoy it, even if it's like a show that you want to watch. It's like now this is like another job, and I don't need another job. Here are my jobs, okay? I have stand-up comedy show. That's one. My thumb is in the. I am a dad. That's a job. And if you say that's not a job, it is a job. But I get why you say it wouldn't be a job. That's two jobs already. I am starting a podcast. 3 jobs. Producing it. That's 4. That's my fingers are. I have trouble doing 4. I have trouble doing 3. I do this for 3. This is 4. If you're not watching the video, I'm trying to figure out the easiest way to hold out fingers. So it's a couple of jobs. And then I run a household. So I don't know why I started going into my jobs. But I don't need another job. I don't need let's watch this movie job. Unless it's like, everyone says it's a great movie. And you're like, oh, I just got to watch it. That can be kind of fun because it probably is good. I don't know. I just like stumbling on to entertainment because when I pick a movie or a show and I start watching it and I don't enjoy it right away, not because of the movie or the show, they're great. That whoever wrote it, directed it, acted in it, is very talented and good. All the big movies, they're all amazing. But like sometimes I don't have the right attitude going into it. Sometimes I'm not watching a movie there. I'm watching in my house and my kid just got to sleep and I'm just like, I'm not in the right headspace to really digest all of this stuff, and then I don't enjoy it, and then I'm like, well, do I stick with it? Before I was a dad, I always finished movies, eventually. Like, I usually in one sitting, but if I couldn't for some reason, I would go back and watch the rest later. As a parent, if I start watching a movie on a plane, and it doesn't enthrall me, I've used that word so many times, I know if, can we use enthralled? Can I be the direct? If it doesn't grab me, that's not as good. It doesn't like really take my breath away. That's a cliche. If it doesn't make me, I don't watch the ends of movies anymore unless it's all in one sitting. I should. I used to like when I was a kid too. I would like if I read a book that was a movie, it would be a treat to go out and watch the movie. Now, if I read a book, if I have the time to like listen to a book or read a book, and then the watching the movie or read the movie as an option, I don't have time. And I already know. I know how it ends. I have it in my head. I have a vision that someone else got paid a lot of money to change, please. I'm sure they did a great job. And the acting was good and the writing was good. Can you tell that I'm a performer that wants to make sure that everyone knows that they think they're really good? That I think that they're doing a good job? I want everyone to know that I think they're doing a really good job. But I love watching movies randomly, and that's why I stream cable, because that's an option. It's kind of hard to turn on a streaming and be like, start a movie and then be like, I'm gonna come back randomly and be surprised by this. That's hard. I don't know how you would do that. That would be an insane thing to do. Like, I know people have their little like quirks or whatever, but if you had some friends over and you're like, we're gonna get some food, and then you go to turn on a movie on Netflix, and then you leave the house to get food, and you're like, why are you doing that? And then you come back and like, oh, look what's on. That your friends would have to do like an intervention of, not of like drugs, but it would be like, dude, what are you doing? And you'd be like, well, I'm trying to relive the feeling of what it's like to turn on the TV and have something entertaining on that I didn't have to choose, that was just there. And so I just forget that I chose it and it's there. But yeah, I think that's that's the problem with that technology specifically. Like when we were kids, everyone was like, "There's nothing on TV," and then everyone's now they're like, "Everything you can watch, anything, everything, anything." And I'm like, I just want someone else to choose. Just choose, so I can be kind of upset if I don't like it, or I can go like, done, none, done. Not watching that. Not watching that. I don't know how kids do it these days. I don't know how they do it. I had two brothers. I shouldn't use past tense when talking about family. Oh, I have two brothers, and growing up, whoever got the remote, no matter how old or young, whoever got it first, they got to use it until they left. That was the rule. But there was always the benefit of there's going to be a commercial, and you can turn the channel and watch something else for a couple minutes. Or that episode's going to be done and something else is going to be on. How does it work in a household with like four kids? Maybe there's four kids, maybe there's two, who knows? And someone's streaming Friends or The Office or some other show, you know? I don't, it doesn't matter. The example doesn't matter for the example. It can insert don't, I should just think of a show that transcends my audience. Whatever show that the kid is watching, if they turn it on, there's a possibility they could watch that show all day with their sibling just sitting there being like, so another one? Okay. Oh, how many episodes? Oh, there's 6 seasons. Well, oh, so I should just go get a job at age 8, and so I can afford my own television. Like, I don't know how you regulate that. Jack, my son, is 5. Jack, my son. Jackson. Wow. Is that how they came up with the name Jackson? Jack's son? Or Jack, my son? I love him so much. Either way, he kind of decides what we watch on TV because he's only up for a certain amount of time. Jack's gonna sleep, for 10 to 14 hours. Sometimes it's been a long time since he slept 13 hours with a nap or whatever. But I always let him pick because I was like, you're up right now. You're going to have to go to bed soon. You get to decide. But we're getting to an age now where he's up longer. And I think it should be more fair. And I don't know how we transition into that because there's some shows that I want to watch that he just can't watch. Some movies that he can't watch. But sports, he can watch sports, and he doesn't like it. When we're at my parents' house, there's a lot of sports, and they're not really worried about whether he enjoys it, which I think is healthy. I don't think it's good for him to be able to decide everything. One time we were eating dinner, and my dad loves baseball. I love baseball. I don't know if I threw out the first bit. Anyway, and we wanted to watch a baseball game because the earlier meal, Jack got to watch his show. That's what I told him. And I was like, well, now it's our turn to watch what we want to watch. And he was so upset. I think he was 3 or 4 at the time. He was so angry. And I was like, and my parents are really good at that. Like, I learned early on that family, maybe everybody, is kind of okay with kids crying because they're like, oh, no, that's just what happens. That if your child's never crying, then that's not healthy, I think. Um, it's your job, kind of, to make him cry. I was trying to think about that. Like, people feel really bad about their baby crying or their child crying in public, but that's just part of it, you know? That's part of the job. That'd be like if a guy who was doing like road construction with like a huge jackhammer started using it, and then it was really loud. He's looked around. He's like, "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." And then I'm just trying. I just got to get to this pavement out. Oh, can you be a little quieter, jackhammer? Like, I think if your kid's screaming, that's what they're doing. So anyways, he got very upset. My parents were fine. They're just like, all right, and I just kept being like, it's our turn, you know, it's grandpa's turn, and it was at the dinner table, and Jack just it was like 6 o'clock, maybe it was 7 p.m. and he didn't nap that day, and he's like fell asleep on my shoulder. He was just like, that was his agreement. He was like, okay, I'm not gonna eat now, but I'm gonna go to sleep, and he slept for like an hour and a half, and we watched the end of the game, and then he woke up and everything was fine. We ate food, and he stayed up super late and didn't sleep as long the next day. So it wasn't fine. But the point is that we got to watch something that he didn't want to watch. My mom is very sensitive about that, about kids, not about what we watch, but about um, my son, when I'm around him, sort of accommodating him. Because I think if I had a lot of kids, it'd be easier to be like, this is what we're doing because this is what we're doing. But with one, it's kind of like, oh, that sounds fun. Let's do it. Or it doesn't sound fun, but it could be fun. Or we got to go to bed soon anyways, so I'm just going to play along with this. That's the best way, I think, for me to like sort of wind Jack down, is to sort of, especially at this age, he'll be like, "Want to play a game?" And I'm like, "Yeah, we'll play this game. We'll play this game." He doesn't even know the rules of the game, and I'm just like, "Oh, you won!" And then he's like, "That's so great." And then we're like, "Now we can go to bed in like 5 minutes. We could play a game that would take an hour. Ticket to Ride it takes an hour, 15 minutes. We can play that in 5 minutes, and he'll win because we don't go by the rules, and I don't tell him that that's not how you play it. And then we go to sleep. Or I could have an argument about how we're not playing any more games and we're just going to bed, and then he's going to be angry and scream and yell, which I just said was healthy. So, but I think it's not as healthy when it's delaying stuff, and I know how to get him into bed anyways. So, anyway, I love watching something on TV that wasn't scheduled. That's what I love. Because I feel like whatever I get out of it is bonus. You know, the main reason I'm sitting there is because I'm sitting there to just not do anything, to just chill out, relax. That's all I want. I think in life, it's good to just do one thing at a time. Like, instead of talking while I drink water, I'm just going to take this drink. I tried to talk a little bit there, and it wasn't as fun. Um, but if I sit down, I'm like, all right, I'm going to stream this thing right here, then it's an extra thing, because now I'm not necessarily focusing on just chilling. I'm focusing on, I got to accomplish this thing. I got to watch. I got to finish it. I got to enjoy it. One of my biggest problems in life, flaws as a person, is like watching something that I can rewind on. When they just said that you could record a show without like a VCR, just like a DVR, like that was a big problem because I would like watch, and then like if I was eating or if I missed something, I'd rewind it again. And if I was alone, I could just rewind it over and over again, and not out of joy, but just be like, did I watch that? Because I'm never coming back here again to watch it. Whoa. If you're listening in the podcast this long, then that might be the first time in the whole podcast series of 2 episodes where I really got into my flaws. That's a big step for us in the podcast, because normally as a comedian, as an adult, it's easy to sort of make fun of the little flaws. But that's something insane that I would do, especially when The Office was on, when I would record The Office and I would watch it, and I liked that show a lot. I would like watch it, and then if something was really funny and I didn't feel like I watched it enough, or I wanted to watch it as funny, I would rewind it, and I just felt like, or if I didn't hear it all the way because I bit into a chip, I would rewind it, and I just felt crazy for doing that. And then instead of enjoying the rewind process, I would be thinking about how crazy it is that I just rewinded it, and then I would miss it again and rewind it again. I'd be like, now this is really crazy that I'm rewinding it 3 times. And then instead of enjoying the third rewind, I would think that's crazy that I'm rewinding it again. Ah, that feels good to get out. That's something you do. That's something you do when you don't have kids. Now I get to watch it, and I'm just happy I'm watching it. We watched Paw Patrol. That's Jack's favorite show right now. And if you go by the hours that I've watched it, it would be mine also. What I love about watching TV with Jack is like I can just fall asleep really easily. And I realized that he's 5 now and can kind of, I guess if I was really out, do something that I should not be asleep during. But I'm a light sleeper. Like if he were to like look at me, I'll wake up. It's crazy. I don't know. So, Wayne's World 1, there was a scene where, I think it's 1. My favorite scene of Wayne's World, the movie I haven't seen, but I saw this part on TV. They lived in the suburbs of Chicago. I want to say Wheaton, but I don't think it was Wheaton, because Wheaton's like a pretty conservative area for how like they were in like rock music and stuff. Is it heavy metal Wayne's World was into? Wayne's World was a show. This is a show. Whoa. Oh, wow. That's enthralling me. That's not the way to use it. I am enthralled. But there was a part in Wayne's World where Wayne and Garth were laying on the hood of a car and watching the planes like go over them and land. I'm assuming at O'Hare Airport, but I think it's more likely if you live in Chicago that would work at Midway, because my comedian friend Pat McGann used to have like a really good joke about how like Midway's just in a neighborhood. Like Midway is pretty close to people's houses. I don't know if you could really do that at O'Hare, but that just seemed like such a cool moment to just like hang out outside and watch airplanes land like right above your head. And that was my favorite part of that movie. And I think it's my favorite part of that movie because if my life was Wayne's life and I was looking back at my life, I think that might be like one of the favorite parts of my life. So there's that. I'm glad we got back to that. Anyway, I had a couple messages this week. My Instagram is at Michael Palasek, MichaelPalasck, or you can email me at michael@michaelpalasek.com. What if I was like dot? I guess I could have been dot. It'd be weird to have a podcast that was .tv. But my friend Kimberly in Indiana sent me a message on Instagram, which she didn't really have to like look up my name because she's my friend, but she said nice things about the podcast. And I think she liked how, I don't remember exactly, but it was nice. It was really nice. And then Sally from France on YouTube. She's from France. Her name is Sally. Don't question it. It's not a bot. She posted on YouTube a comment how she liked my shower curtain. So that was super nice. If you want to send me a message, do it. I think that's something I do before the end of my shows now. Is just go with that. Go out there, everybody. Live your life. Schedule a time to have nothing scheduled. Bring back cable television. If you want to go see a live thing, I'll be in New Brunswick, New Jersey, Wednesday, March 20th at the Stress Factory. But no stress. It's gonna be fun. New York, at the Cutting Room. Those tickets, the link's just going to go up today. It's 2 days away, so get them while they're hot. March 22nd, I'll be in Intervale, New Hampshire at Ledge Brewing Company. March 23rd, this is going to be exciting. I'm going to be in Portsmouth, New Hampshire at the Music Hall Lounge. 2 shows, and I'm super excited. It's my Portsmouth debut. March 24th, I'll be in Uncasville, Connecticut at Comics at Mohegan Sun. And then I'm going to go on an Easter train ride in LA. That's not a show. That's just a cool thing to have in LA. If you live in California, they have a train for kids, but you can any age really. And around Easter time, they had little like wooden signs of eggs, and then you can go on the ride a couple times and pick out the eggs. And so I'm excited. I get very excited to do things that that I don't remember doing as a kid because I was too young. Like I don't think you remember everything you did when you were 4 or 5, but stuff that Jack still might like to do, and it's pretty cheap too. So I'm gonna do that, and then Wednesday, March 27th, Toledo, Ohio. Actually, Perrysburg, Ohio, but the Toledo Funny Bone. March 28th in Dayton, Ohio, the Funny Bone. March 29th, Lansing, Michigan, at Max Bar. It's a Michigan State bar. I should check if Michigan State. I don't think they made the tournament. I don't know. I'm off on that. Then April 4th, Fayetteville, Arkansas. April 5th, Washington D.C. April 6th, Fort Smith, Arkansas. The routing with there is perfect. Also in April, I'll be in Atlanta, Georgia on the 10th at the Punchline. Then Knoxville, Bristol, Tennessee at Blue Ridge Comedy Club, April 13th. Tacoma, Washington, Lincoln City, Oregon, Portland, Oregon in April. Salt Lake City in April. Bozeman, Montana in May. That's where I'm gonna be. So that's that part of the show. I think that's it. I can't think of anything else. I really appreciate people listening. This is the very second episode, and if you're watching or listening, it's very special. I get to see when people download it, and it means a lot because this is one of my jobs, which is why watching TV can't be my job. And so just know that. Just know that, especially if you got to this long in the show, that if you're watching or listening to anything, not even that I'm doing, but an individual is doing on their own, they can tell. They don't know when you're not. I don't feel like I have to watch or listen to anything all the way through. I'm pretty sure my parents don't even know what this is. I've told them. I might have touched on that in my last podcast episode, not to be enthralling, but yeah, it means a lot when you see the people that you don't see who it is, but the numbers. Every single person counts, and that's very special. So I appreciate that. I just got my kid to sleep, and this is the podcast. But this podcast isn't called "I just got everything clean in the kitchen," or "I just put dirty clothes away" or "clean clothes away," or "I just am ready to go to bed myself." So I'm gonna get out of here, do some of that stuff, maybe turn on the TV and watch something randomly. I really appreciate it. All right, the end.